On this edition, I'm going to break down, predict the main card of UFC 150. Obviously, the fights are taking place tonight. This is an incredibly late video. Better late than never. Obviously, this card headlines the rematch between Frankie Edgar and Ben Henderson. Hopefully, this fight will deliver on all levels. So, what I'm just going to hop right into. I'm going to start off. The first fight of the night is on the main card is Justin Lawrence versus Max Holloway. Now, this fight could be a very entertaining fight. You got both guys at featherweight. Obviously, Justin Lawrence is dropping down. Hopefully, he does not gas like he did fighting at a higher weight. Be interesting to see how it translates into the octagon. Both guys are very skilled stand-up fighters. I mean, Max Holloway's been compared to Anthony Pettis for his wide variety of very flashy strikes. You know, flying knees, kicks, strikes. He knows how to finish fights in the stand-up department. He doesn't so much have as good of a ground game as he does a stand-up game. We saw Dustin Poirier expose that when they fought, absolutely owning the guy on the ground. But Holloway is very quick, very explosive. He's a very dynamic fighter in this fight. Then you have Justin Lawrence. Justin Lawrence, obviously, coming off The Ultimate Fighter, had a big win in the finale. I mean, Justin Lawrence, had probably the most impressive fight to get into the house, defeating James Krause in a good fight. But Justin Lawrence trains at Black House. He's got a really good stand-up game. Guy's got some serious power. He'll most definitely be the bigger fighter in this fight, dropping down from a weight class. Guy's got some serious power, and he knows how to mix up his strikes. He always presses forward. He has a pretty good chin. We saw Mike Chiesa expose his chin a little bit, but Justin Lawrence, I'd say, has the grappling advantage in this fight. Everybody's like, oh, it's going to be a stand-up battle. But if Justin Lawrence is smart, he will utilize his wrestling. He does have a wrestling background. He can submit fighters as well, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But Justin Lawrence tends to, I don't want to say veer away from the game plan. I think he's a great fighter, but he tends to get a little carried away in the octagon when he fights, technically kind of like in the fight with Chiesa. But, I think in regards to how this fight pans out, I think I'm going to give Holloway the slight advantage, but I'm going to say Justin Lawrence wins this fight. I think it's actually going to be by decision. I think Holloway has a good chin. Lawrence has a good chin as well. It did get exposed against Chiesa, but I'm going to take Justin Lawrence winning this fight via decision. Unanimous decision in this fight. The next fight of the night is Yushin Okami versus Buddy Roberts. Obviously, Yushin Okami was supposed to face Husamar Palhares, but Palhares had to pull out due to injury. Now Buddy Roberts is in. Buddy Roberts trains at Jackson's MMA. He's a balanced fighter. This is a big step up in talent, obviously facing Yushin Okami. He is a bigger guy for the division, though. He dropped down from light heavyweight to middleweight, so maybe Yushin Okami won't have that big size advantage like he tends to have in fights because he's a very big middleweight. Roberts can finish fighters both in the stand-up department and on the ground. He's got good submissions. He's got good stand-up. I personally, I think that Yushin Okami is the better fighter in all areas, but Buddy Roberts can. I think if Buddy Roberts is successful in this fight, he's got to finish Yushin Okami. I think if this one goes to decision, I think Okami could dominate both in the stamp and on the ground. But I think Buddy Roberts got to go for broke sometime at this fight, and I think he's got to try and test Yushin Okami's most definitely questionable chin, especially after we saw Boach, Anderson, so we saw guys rock Yushin Okami. Yushin Okami is a great fighter, but I think he's got to go for broke. He's got to try and finish this fight. Then you have Yushin Okami. Yushin Okami's got... He's a very big guy for the division. Obviously, he's facing a guy who's also very big in size as well. Okami's got a very good counter strike. He's got a very good 1-2. He utilized that very effectively in the Boach fight. We saw that until Boach went for broke and defeated him by obviously knocking out Okami. But Okami also has very good ground game. He could take you down. His ground and pound is some of the best. He can lock in submissions. I don't see him submitting Buddy Roberts. But I see him as the more complete fighter in this fight. Obviously, Buddy Roberts is balanced, but I think it's a big step up in talent. I see Yushin Okami also taking this fight the distance and defeating Buddy Roberts via unanimous decision. The next fight of the night is going to be, quite frankly, I think this is probably going to be one of the best fights in the night. That's Jake Shields versus Ed Herman. And Jake Shields is obviously moving back up to middleweight. Definitely a weight class that I'd say it fits him better. He shouldn't have been fighting down at welterweight. Middleweight makes a lot more sense. This is the division that he dominated for quite some time, and he's fighting at a natural weight. Maybe he won't get gassed. I won't say Shields gets gassed, but I think it's a better weight for him to be fighting at. So Jake Shields, he's undoubtedly the better grappler in this fight, and that's saying a lot considering Herman is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Shields' striking is actually coming a long way. It looked a lot better against Akiyama. Good boxing, but he still needs to come a long way in the stand-up department. But what he makes up for is outstanding wrestling and submission game. It'll be interesting to see how soon he tries to take this fight down to the ground, especially against a really skilled striker like Herman. But I think his wrestling is going to be the biggest factor in this fight. If he is to be successful, he's got to try and lock in submission. It'll be a tall task to submit a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu like Ed Herman. So Ed Herman's in the stand-up department undoubtedly the better striker in this fight. Herman is also a very big middleweight. I think he's going to be the bigger fighter in this fight. Big middleweight, fought at light heavyweight earlier on in his career. Big size. He's got outstanding stuff. The guy's explosive. He's always going for the kill. He's got incredible knees, good hands, throws some leg kicks. He knows how to mix it up. He's got a really deadly clinch. If he's willing to flirt with the clinch, especially against a takedown, technically expert like Jake Shields would be the biggest question. He's also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He has a very underrated ground game. Everyone's like, oh, Jake Shields could take him down half his way. That's because Jake Shields is just such an outstanding grappler. However, Herman is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the ground. He knows how to lock in submission. He knows how to finish fights. He's the better finisher in this fight. And he is susceptible to submissions, though he has been submitted for. So how I see this one playing out, I mean, do I see Jake Shields submitting Herman? I personally don't. I think it's possible, but I personally don't see it happening. I think if Shields is to win, it's by decision and via controlling Herman on the ground winning unanimous decision. If I see Herman winning this fight, I see him knocking out or TKOing Jake Shields. I just see him, if he's going to keep this one staying, he's got to go for, not so much go for broke, but he's got to capitalize in the stand-up the times that he's on his feet. He's got to try and connect with Shields' chin. If he's presented the opportunity, he's got to finish it. So I'm going to take Ed Herman defeating Jake Shields via TKO or knockout. And this would obviously be one of the bigger wins of his career. So I'll take Ed Herman. The next fight of the night is Don Cerrone versus Melvin Guillard. And this should be an entertaining fight. I mean, obviously, both guys are friends. They had not even an intense stare down. Both guys hugged it out. Both smiled at each other. And these guys are both, I want to say, technically very similar fighters, except Cerrone has a much better ground game than Guillard does. Don Cerrone's got, I mean, he was a kickboxer before he got into mixed martial arts. He had an outstanding record. The guy knows how to finish fights. He's got good power. He mixes up the leg kicks. I think he had such a good fight against Stevens. He wasn't able to finish Stevens, but he absolutely dismantled the guy. He's got good hands, good leg kicks. He knows, I mean, he's got a variety of different leg kicks too. And I think he had a better performance in his last fight than Melvin Guillard did. And also in regards to that too is that Cerrone's got good power, and when he's known to rock guys, he doesn't so much go for the finish on the feet. He goes right for that neck. He's got a really good rear naked choke. He's got a really good guillotine choke. And obviously Melvin Guillard's susceptible to submission. So we're going to see how that one pans out. So that's really in regards to Don Cerrone. Melvin Guillard's, I'd say, Don Cerrone's got a very good chin. Melvin Guillard has an incredible knockout power. I mean, the guy's explosive. He's very quick on his feet. He mixes up the leg kicks as well. Good power. I mean, can he finish Cerrone? I think it'd be a long shot considering both guys have very good chins, but is it possible? I mean, maybe, but I don't personally see that happening. Guillard's got really good power, and Cerrone's been known to take a beating before. Guillard also does practice judo. He's also blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but his Achilles heel has always been getting submitted, and I think Cerrone has a huge submission advantage in this fight, given the fact when he rocks, he goes right in for the finish. I see this one panning out. I don't see it happening as quickly as the Lozon versus Guillard fight, but I see Cerrone wobbling Melvin Guillard. He tends to get wobbled sometimes. I see Cerrone going in for the submission and finishing this fight via submission, either rear naked choke, guillotine, however you want to call it. But I think Cerrone's going to rock Guillard either on a counter strike or on the offensive. He's going to submit Melvin Guillard and win this fight and maybe move closer to potentially getting a top contender fight, working his way up towards it. So I'll take Donald Cerrone. The main event of the night is Frankie Edgar versus Benson Henderson. Now, Frankie Edgar's boxing always continues to get better. I'm very interested to see how he implements his boxing in this fight, considering Benson Henderson used very effective counter-striking in the last fight. Frankie Edgar also has, I'd say he's probably the better wrestler. I mean, he was able to take down Benson Henderson. Wasn't able to keep him down, but he was able to secure takedowns. He's got good submission defense. He's brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I'd say he's the faster fighter in this fight. Then you have Benson Henderson. Benson Henderson has he has good speed, not more speed than Frankie Edgar. His leg kicks are definitely a big factor in this fight. He implemented them perfectly in the last fight. He was able to cut off Frankie Edgar's strikes and really make his speed irrelevant in the last fight. He let Edgar come to him. He also did go to Edgar as well. He really implemented a really good game plan to defeat Frankie Edgar. But he also has good wrestling. He's got really good submissions. I mean, Frankie Edgar is one of the only guys to survive a Benson Henderson guillotine choke. Both guys, I mean, they both fight with incredible heart. They both never know when to quit. There's no quit in either fighter. But I'm going to have to take Frankie Edgar in this fight. I think the rematch factor is the biggest factor in this fight, is that in a rematch, Frankie Edgar is unbelievable. So is Benson Henderson. I mean, especially against Cerrone, he was able to finish him in the first round against Donald Cerrone. But, I mean, I'm going to take Frankie Edgar in the rematch factor. I think Frankie Edgar is going to come out. He's going to have a good game plan. He's going to adjust. It's going to be a close fight, but I'm going to take Frankie Edgar winning this fight via unanimous decision and being crowned the lightweight champion in the UFC. So I'll take Frankie Edgar via unanimous decision. I'll take Donald Cerrone via submission. I'll take Ed Herman via TKO or knockout. I'll take Yushin Okami via unanimous decision. I'll take Justin Lawrence via unanimous decision. Those are my predictions. Hope everybody enjoys the fights tonight.